Hey everybody, Drew Renolette here, Director of Student Ministries at Cooperative Community Church in Lenexa, Kansas. I hope you're all doing well. I hope you've all enjoyed the weather this last week as it's been a little nicer and a little cooler. I hope things are going well for you and you're truly enjoying that. But let's go ahead and jump in. Last week we started a series called True Stories. We started looking at some fake stories, but then also some true stories, and started looking about how those stories are true in the Bible and how they can be used to help us to do better things and greater things. Well, as you know, last week we talked about how because of who God is, we can trust who He made us to be. This week we're going to look into because of how because of who God is, we can do difficult things. As I said, we've been looking at some true stories that are in our Bible, but also some fake stories that aren't in our Bible. Let's start with one of those, though. Let's start with The Incredibles. Have you seen The Incredibles? I have. I think it's a pretty good movie, even though I've never seen the second one yet, but I still plan to. I think it's a good one. We'll see. But let's take a look at this family. Let's talk about the first movie. Let's take a look at this family. First off, you got the dad. He's got superhuman strength. You got the mom. She's super stretchy. She's flexible. She can stretch her body parts. Then you got the son, super speed, and the daughter who can, I think it's telekinesis or invisibility, something of the sort like that. I don't know exactly what it is because she can create the bubbles, but then she can also turn invisible. So I don't exactly know what that is. But it's a cool superpower. But then you have Jack. At the beginning of the first movie, it's kind of strange. You have this superhero family, but then you have Jack. With no superpowers? That doesn't make any sense. But I guess it is what it is. But as you know, you go through the movie and the Incredibles are doing these incredible things, the things that just don't make sense and just can't do anything. But by the end of the movie, something happens. Near the end of the movie, Syndrome, the bad guy, ends up kidnapping Jack. Now, if you're the Incredibles, you're super worried because this is your one kid who doesn't have superpowers. And at this point, they can't use their superpowers or they can't come up with an idea how to save Jack. But then something miraculous happens. Jack gets his powers and all things are fixed. And that's a fact of it. Now, that's a fake story. But let's look at our Bible now. We don't really have any superheroes in our Bible. I think there's some people that I would call a superhero, but not in the way of like having superpowers. But there are some things that are supernatural in our Bible. Some things that happen kind of like Jack getting his powers. But right now we're going to take a minute, and today we're going to look at one of those guys. We're going to look at a guy named Elijah. So let's talk about Elijah. Let me give you a little background on him. So first off, Elijah lived in the 9th century BC, a long time ago, Old Testament, before Christ. That's what BC means if you didn't know. Now you do. You can read about Elijah in 1st and 2nd Kings. He is a big part of that. Elijah's a prophet. He's a prophet of Israel sent to talk to the people of Israel about Christ and about God. The period of time that we're going to look at is when he was prophesying during the time of King Ahab. And let me tell you something. King Ahab was not a good dude. One of the things he did was he got his people to worship Baal instead of Christ. But that's where our story picks up. So in 1 Kings chapter 18, verses 18 through 39, we get this really cool story. Elijah goes and he goes to King Ahab and says, hey, I want to prove to you that my God can do things that Baal cannot, because Baal is not real. He's not a God. He's not a thing. So Elijah says, get 450 prophets of Baal and bring them up to the Mount of Carmel. And when we're there, bring 2 bulls as well, but nothing to light a fire. We're going to chop these bulls up. We're going to serve them. We're going to cook them. We're going to get them prepared as sacrifices. So they go up to the Mount of Carmel. The prophets of Baal set up there as Elijah says, hey, go first, do your thing. So they do their thing. They call it to Baal, answer us. Guess what? Baal doesn't answer. So it comes to Elijah's turn. Elijah says, all right, my turn. gets everything ready, gets everything prepared. But he says, hold on a minute. Let's dump some water on there. Let's drench my wood and everything. Because I've trusted in my God and trust in his power. So he does it. He goes, no, once isn't enough. Let's do it again. So they do it again. And then Elijah calls out to God. Without touching it, without anything, God lights the fire. He lights the fire, and the wood burns, and the sacrifice is made. Proving that God is a true hero. Something supernatural that you don't think has happened often. I don't know how many times you just stand there and you're like, wow, that fire just started. I've never seen it happen. So this is a pretty amazing moment. Now here's the thing. God's so amazing. He called Elijah to do something difficult, something tough. Go up against a king and 450 prophets when he was the only one that was there, the prophet of God that was left. But he did it. He stepped up because he knew that doing something difficult, God would be there for him. Because our God helps us do difficult things. But let's keep going with Elijah. That's just one. Now you would think after all of this happened, Elijah would be safe. He wouldn't have to worry about anything because, there's this miraculous power that people will realize, oh, wait, he has God on his side. Maybe we should back off. Not exactly what happened. King Ahab's wife was not happy with this. So she decided she was going to send men to kill Elijah. Elijah ran because he was terrified. He ran and ran and ran until one day he laid down under a bush. In fact, he laid down under this bush with no food, no water, and not having to be able to rest because he was being chased. In fact, he even called out to God to let him die. But God wasn't about that. God says, hey, I have your back. I'm going to do some things for you. 1, I'm going to let you get rest. You will be safe. 2, here's some food. And 3, here's some water. He gave Elijah what he needed so that he would survive. That's our God. He's awesome. He felt him, he rested him. Elijah was able to get enough rest, get enough food, enough water, that he was rejuvenated and ready to move on. In fact, God even promised him that he would make it to his next destination safely, and he did. But another part of the story that shows another piece of who our God is. As he's going, Elijah stopped a second time to rest. But this time, instead of under a bush, he went into a cave. And he cried out to God, and he was waiting to listen to God. Now, he went out on the cliff's edge, the cave's edge, to listen. First came a giant windstorm. God wasn't in the windstorm. Second came an earthquake. God wasn't in the earthquake. And then lastly came a still small whisper, which is where Elijah heard God, in the small whisper. God came to Elijah. God was there for Elijah. And even through all this difficult times that he was going through, God showed Elijah, hey, I'm here with you, I'm talking to you, and I can guide you to where you need to be, and you will get there safely because you are on my mission. So here's a few things we learned about God from just this story period. By the way, that second story of Elijah running from the queen is found in 1 Kings 19, 2-12. Check that out. It's a good one as well. Elijah's a great guy. Check out his story. But let's jump back to this now. A few things we learned about God. First off, he's gentle. He could have came in the earthquake. He could have came in the strong wind. But instead, he decided to come in the whisper. He's understanding. When Elijah was under that bush and he wanted to die, God could have just been like, what are you doing, Elijah? But he didn't. He understood that he was tired. He was hungry. He was thirsty, and he needed rest. And God gave him that. The next one, speaking of God giving him that, he gives us what we need. Elijah just wanted to die, and God could have let him. But instead, he provided him the things he needed. He protects us. This is shown by God getting Elijah to his destination safely. He's with us. He spoke to Elijah twice on this journey, saying, hey, I'm here. And the last one is he speaks to us. He talks to each and every one of us. So as you go throughout your day, I want you to realize one thing. We get put in difficult situations. They're hard, they're tough, and sometimes we want to give up. But just remember, because of who God is, we can do difficult things. That's all of us. You, me, your brother, your sister, your mom, your dad, your cousin, your aunt, your uncle, whoever they may be. They can do difficult things because of who God is. You can do difficult things because of who God is. Thanks for joining today. I hope you have an awesome week. I hope you enjoy the weather. I hope you have enjoyed school so far. Keep going, keep building. And remember, when something difficult comes up, you can do it because that's who God made us. That's who God is, and He helps us through those situations. God bless.